Hey everybody, I'm everywhere, even lurking inside your peerScholar activities. In fact, you'll see me now and then at every step of the peerScholar activity. But for this one, this is meant to give you the overview. And one of the things, by the way, if you haven't seen it yet, before I post this, I'll be posting a video through an announcement that kind of highlights the peerScholar process and how it was created intentionally to give you exercise with things like critical thinking and creative thinking and communication both ways, expressing yourself but also learning from others, being able to listen to others and learn from them well. We're going to sneak in some collaboration here, and we're also going to work on what we call your metacognitive awareness, your sense of what you're good at and areas where you need improvement. These are the kinds of skills that are going to help you succeed post-graduation, no matter what you do. So the idea of every peerScholar activity you run into throughout university, and you should run into several, I hope, is to keep these skills being exercised. So that's part of what's going on, and that previous video will describe that in more detail. This video is actually just trying to be clear about the task that I have for you in this activity. And it really is sort of part of a bigger story we're going to tell in this class. I really would love you guys to become scholars of learning to some extent. If you understand learning and really good approaches and good practices and what they develop and why they work, then you become a very good consumer of learning. You know the things you should want in your education. And so we are going to explore this with a goal in mind, and that goal is the ultimate work integrated learning projects. I say projects because there's two, but the one that's mostly on my mind is the opportunity we are going to have to pitch great e-learning ideas to the government of Ontario. And I'm going to present a little video of me chatting with some Government of Ontario folks to get you excited about that. But before we get there, I want you to learn about learning quite seriously. And that is what this peerScholar activity is about. So, specifically, let's just jump through. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to show you some challenges on the next screen, 5 different challenges. And I'm also going to give you the option of creating your own if you want, but these 5 challenges can get you going. And these are the things I want you to focus on. So I want you with an end goal of thinking of that opportunity to give advice to the Government of Ontario about how they can improve e-learning. So ultimately, that's what we're going to, this notion that you're going to be able to give advice. These challenges reflect specific challenges associated with online learning. And so I want you to pick one, and I want you to learn more about that. So just to be a little more concrete, one of them is engagement. How can you make online learning engaging so that students want to come back to it, and when they're watching, they want to stay with it? So imagine that's the challenge you picked. I now want you to browse the internet and learn about some of the solutions people are suggesting. People are out there saying, hey, this product or this approach or this process enhances engagement, enhances student engagement. And so, look around a little bit more, see what you can find. Now, part of what you're trying to get here is figuring out the sort of way people talk about these things. Like, for example, even the word engagement is a critical word. You might have thought of, student interest or how I don't know, what are other words? But anyway, the word that we use is engagement, whether students are engaged. And so sometimes you have to learn the way people talk about some of these things. And so just looking at articles, maybe experts are being interviewed about how to increase engagement, newspapers might be talking to people or various whatever. Start with just the informal stuff. But eventually, once you hear about some process or practice that theoretically is relevant to your challenge, then I want you to go to either Google Scholar or the library or whatever and find a peer-reviewed journal article that has examined something related to that solution in an experimental manner. So part of this is also getting you into the research field and getting you to see real experiments in their final form, which is publications in peer-reviewed journals. And so I want you to go to those journals and try to find a paper you really like, where they did some sort of experiment related to your challenge, and probably ultimately argue that, hey, this process is a good one and we've got the data to prove it. Okay, so read that paper. Now, what you're actually going to have to do, so this is all sort of preparation. These are the two things that really have to be in your peerScholar composition, which is the first step of the process. First of all, I want you to summarize that article. Make sure you put things in your own words. Do not copy and paste anything, or you could be in big trouble. Even if your words are worse than their words, use your words. I just wanted to say that clearly. So summarize that article, and when you do, make sure you identify the independent and dependent variables, the theory that's being tested, the hypothesis that's being tested, and talk about the method. And this is all your opportunity to show us you can talk about a scientific article in an appropriate way, and you can highlight what these things are. So we want you to kind of figure this stuff out and kind of solidify your knowledge of the chapter 2 stuff as you do. Also highlight whether the results supported the hypothesis and how or why they did. We would like you to keep that summary part to 300 or 400 words. Then, remember that discussion about transferring research into practice? Imagine you were now going to advise somebody. You were doing a sort of consulting work, say for the Ontario government, and you were going to suggest a way that this solution could be applied. So once you find a solution that seems to have some scientific backing, how might this actually fit within an online learning context? So, give us a real clear idea. A student sitting down, they're doing online learning, and you're going to suggest they go through some process. How would that actually unfold? Okay, give a clear sense, which is often what people are looking for. Okay, I know you think those things are good for engagement. I know you think that thing fosters engagement. How would we actually make that happen? So I want you to go from the science to the application and talk about that. How could the solution be implemented? And from 200 to 400 words on this section. Okay, summary followed by suggestions for how it can be implemented. Okay, cool. There may be more details on the Quercus site. There probably will be about specifics, but that's the general task you have. Okay, as far as the challenges, here are the 5 that I've identified, but I want you to see these as sort of, the spirit of things. So this is, I didn't want to say just come up with a challenge yourself. I was tempted to, but I didn't know if you guys would come up with real challenges. So these are 5 real challenges, but they are not the whole world of challenges. There may be others, and you can feel free to highlight your own as I'll specify. But let's go through these 5. The first one is engagement. So one major challenge students face while learning online is staying engaged in the learning experience. What techniques can be employed to enhance engagement when learning online? So you could pick that as your challenge. Here's another one. One way of ensuring students are learning well is to ask them to apply their learning in the context of some sort of assignment or activity. You're being asked to do essays, you're going to be asked to do whatever. There's all these different things you can be asked to do. Are there some of these things that are especially good activities for reaching certain learning goals? And usually that just means, having the students have a much deeper understanding of the content. So what are these approaches and what goals do they support? So again, are there really cool learning activities that accomplish certain goals? And what are those goals? That's number 2. Number 3, for online learning to be most effective, often parents or guardians must play a role in the learning. What ways are there to support those who are supporting the learning? So this is almost a mega step. There's the learning the child is experiencing, but then there's the idea of helping the child as a parent or guardian. What could we do to help them help their students? That's a challenge. 4th, this is one near and dear to my heart. Our province understands that effective education is not just about transferring information to students, it is also about building skills. What techniques exist for promoting the development of skills like critical thought or communication skills? So what are the approaches that are out there? What's something that seems highly effective? How could it be integrated into online learning? Cool. And 5, this is just a classic one. When learning is assessed online, think of your final exams and stuff, there are always worries about academic integrity. What can be done to promote the highest possible levels of academic integrity, which is another way to say what can be done to prevent cheating. There are certainly approaches out there. Check them out and see if there's one that you think is cool that you would like to promote as an approach here. And again, some other idea. It doesn't have to be one of these 5. These 5 I present just mostly because some students are like, I don't know, what's a challenge? I don't know. So here's 5 challenges, but there are probably others. You as a student have experienced some of them yourself. So if you want to create your own challenge, this is what I think is a major challenge with online learning. Here's an approach. Here's a study that examines an approach to that, and you summarize the study. And now here's how I think this could be implemented in an online learning environment. Okay, so that's the vibe of what we want you to do. In the process, I'm hoping you'll stumble across a lot of things about learning. So the experiments, by the way, do not have to be about online learning. The experiments have to be about learning. So it can be, some process that helps learning in any context, your experiment. But then when you apply it, I want you to apply it to e-learning. Cool. So the experiment can be any kind of learning, but the application is an e-learning application. Cool. You are now playing the role of translational kind of person, not translational researcher, because we're not really going to do research with the government, but more a sort of consultant to the government about how they can take great ideas from research and bring them into the online learning that they eventually create. And so this is going to be the beginning of you getting to learn a little about learning. I hope you find it interesting. Okay, go for it. Go at it. In the subsequent parts of the peerScholar activity, you'll probably see me pop up and talk to you again. Until then, later.